Hear Me See Me podcast is sponsored by Zenoti, the #1 cloud software for salons and spas. Because when people feel good, they find their greatness. I am Stuart Roberts, and I'm really excited to introduce my new podcast, Hear Me See Me. It's just over 5 years ago. I did something that changed my life. What it did, more than I could have ever realised, it helped me. I have met some absolutely amazing people. Some of the people that work in some of these places, many of them are volunteers, but some of them it is their job. I had this idea after being inspired by a guy in America I'd seen cutting hair on the streets and seeing the difference it made to the guys who were there. This is more than a job, this is a calling. Hello, this is Stuart from Hear Me See Me podcast, and today I've got a wonderful gentleman who is an amazing hairdresser, salon owner and ambassador to Babyliss. Today I'm with Sid Hayes. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me on this incredible podcast that you're doing, Stuart. Great to have me here, and thank you for letting me come and join you.
Yeah, no, I've been looking forward to it. So without further ado, let's go straight into it.
Yeah,
I love taking people back. So the little young Sid Hayes at school, you know, what type of kid was you? What was it like?
Right. The little Sid, I suppose. My granddad was called Sid. Unfortunately, he passed away recently, but he was an epic man and someone I always look up to. Was born in Essex, magistrate, general all-round legend. Yeah. And then so that was sort of my mum's side. And then my dad, he's actually from Lincoln originally, and started hairdressing from when he was 15, 16, I think. And my mum and dad met, and then obviously this little hairdresser popped out as well. And I've grown up around the hairdressing industry my whole life. I've been around a salon since I was, the age of nothing. And used to go in and help sweep the floor as a 5-year-old. And I'd get my cheek squeezed and given 50p for smiling. I mean, those were the days.
That'd be a bit questionable nowadays, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Come here, sonny. Let me squeeze your cheek for 50p.
I'm sure about that now. Yeah, definitely. So I suppose hairdressing has been my life. It's been part of what I've grown up around. It's part of the way I live. I've seen my dad, work his absolute arse off in a small salon. It's a small family salon in Kew Gardens. It's got 7 chairs. It's called Kew Cut. And it means the sort of world to me, really, because I suppose that's the business that I've grown up around and had a great lifestyle through that business. Mm. So I help run that now, not really with my dad. I run it with a manager. I sort of help lead it, and I'm there, I'd probably say, 1 day a week. Mm. And that means everything to me. And we've got a great team in there at the moment. Absolutely amazing team. Luckily, touch wood, they can change overnight. Yeah. And it's something I feel very passionate about. It's not, it's not the most creative salon in the world, because it's a little salon. It's in Kew Gardens, Southwest London. Yeah. We've got an amazing, big clientele there. And when I say it's not most creative, that's actually changing, and that's changed a lot since I've put my energy into that as well and help guide it and lead it and give it a creative side, I suppose. And then there's the sort of session work and session world and stuff that I've done all my life. Yeah. Since I was 17 when I joined Nicky Clark's in Mayfair. Really? Mount Street.
As an apprentice or?
Yeah, as an apprentice. When I was 17, I was very much into my art and sport. And my dad said, well, I said to my dad, I don't want to go and finish my A-levels. I said, I don't want to go to university. I don't want to do my A-levels. I don't want to go and, do a degree in something that I'm not into. I really want to go into something in fashion and photography. And with that thought of art and fashion, photography and sculpture, I was very into sculpture at the time. I sort of thought, well, if I go into hairdressing is sculpture.
Yes.
And if I go and do that and I train, then let's give that a go. So he said, well, you can't come and work in my salon. You can't come and work with us because you need to go and learn it by yourself. You need to go and learn from someone else. And that's probably the best advice that I think he had given me at that time, because as a kid, as a 17-year-old teenager, you think you know everything.
Yeah.
And if your dad's trying to teach you, it's just not good.
I'm only laughing, Sid, because I had a salon for 30 years, and my son, I've got 4 daughters and a son, and he's the only one who went in it. And my wife forbade me to employ him. And I wasn't as wise as your dad, because I actually wanted him to work with me.
Yeah.
And she was very clever, and she said, no, he's got to go. And he went to London and done his own thing. And I think your dad is 100% right, because she knew we'd fall out, me and him.
Yeah.
And that's probably what your dad thought.
And I think that was quite clever, because in the end, we always we're humans, we always go back to our roots, and we always go back to what we know, if that makes sense. So I went off and he actually took me around into London, and we looked around all the big salons. At the time, I went and looked at Beverly Corbella's, or it was Corbella then.
Yeah.
And I went into to Trevor Sorbie. I went into Vidal Sassoon. I went into Nicky Clark's. And at the time, Nicky Clark's salon was the biggest, grandest salon that you could imagine. It was 3 stories. It was on the corner of Berkeley Square and Mount Street. It was like, it was a big salon, big player. And I walked in there, and there was sort of all these women with big sort of coiffed blow dries, and an Italian assistant running around called Alvaro, and Rupert, this amazing hairstylist, was, he was always there working and always in his chair, and just the atmosphere was incredible. Yeah. So we decided in the summer holidays that I'd go and work there if I could as a Saturday assistant. And they didn't take Saturday assistants at that time. But Hazel, the lady that used to do the coat check, I mean, can you imagine a coat check lady who would basically like take people's coats? That was a proper job. That's how busy it was in this salon.
Yeah.
And she used to manage and run the assistants as well. That's a job. And I joined. In the end, they said, they took me on as a Saturday assistant. So for the summer, I basically went in there all the time just for my summer holidays. And then me and my dad sat down at the end of the summer holidays, and he said, so what do you want to do? You going to go back to school, or are you going to go into it and do it? I mean, and in Mayfair with all those women and, people running around and a 17-year-old lad, I was like, I'm in.
Yes.
So, it started there, basically.
I remember that time, and I remember him hitting that peak at the Nicky Clark, and he was also really well known for the most expensive haircut in Britain at that time. And he was the first one to crack. It was the £500 haircut.
Yeah.
And the fact that they had like a restaurant underneath, there was this separate bill, didn't you? And it was like £500 for a cut and blow dry. You don't, and you have to pay for a coffee on top. It was,
and the assistants, us guys, used to do the blow dry on that haircut as well. Serious business, impressive.
Impressive.
And I think that that's amazing to the talent of Nicky and what he created, but also the sort of business brains of Leslie Clark, and but the amazing team that was, and the guy that used to run the kitchen is still there. Actually, he's called Shag. Great guy.
Really?
Yeah. Shag, yeah.
Just going down to see Shag.
Just going downstairs to see Shag. Yeah, you would get done for that as well, wouldn't you?
Because at the time, I know Charles Worthington was charging about £80. So to give people perspective, you know, you had Charles Worthington, and that was like 80 quid, and then it went, boom, £500, you know. So he really did set some. But it's not just money, is it? It's about it's about value, and it's valuing. It's your worth.
Yeah,
and, you know, we've had this thing for years and decades of, you know, we said, didn't we? Only a hairdresser, only a, you know, like it's for hairdressing to take itself seriously and to charge the right money for its time, for its experience.
It's an interesting one, that, because I was talking to the British Beauty Council recently about, you know, the fact of, and especially talking to even my dad about this as well, and about the fact that young people and young kids and teenagers and people at school, they're not advised to go into hairdressing because it's seen as the last possible job that you could do. And I think it's such a shame, because I've had the best job. You know, normally I travel the world on photo shoots for different brands, like, you know, Versace. I did their fragrance campaign a few months ago, you know, last year now, which was on an island off of Sicily with the biggest models in the world. You know, at the time I was with Hailey Bieber and Bella Hadid, and we were shooting this luxurious campaign at this, like, 3 or 4 months into COVID. It was, you know, it's mental.
Yeah.
And I think I've sort of, you know, I'm not that old, but I've sort of thought about, what can I do now to give back, especially in these times? Yeah. And I look at, you know, someone like me could go and hopefully start to inspire young kids to go into hairdressing, because it's the best job. It's creative. You know, you've done it for a long time, and you've run salons, and very successful one. And, you know, now you're doing something totally different, but you're giving back. And I think that's what's important about life sometimes.
I think you need it for your soul. I mean, you definitely need to, you know, it's a balance in life. Everything, you know, the Japanese knew a lot, you know, and it's everything comes down to balance. And it's true that you can go too far in one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I think it's crucial what you said as well, inspiring young hairdressers and I recently, only a couple of weeks ago, did a Zoom conference talk to a load of students, which is great about this now, that, you know, I was about to spend the day going to Bedford, and I went to Bedford College, and we just done this Zoom thing, and it was an hour, and then I was back in my kitchen, you know. But and people like yourself, you know, we need people like you to inspire these young people who are just getting into the industry and say, look, you know, you're not all going to become session stylists, but this is what you can do, or you can become a Nikki Clark, or you can become someone who's, you know, fabulously creative. And there's so many aspects to our industry.
Completely. Absolutely. I sort of, I look at the world and the career I've had so far, and I look at it and I think, you know, well, what's next? What's exciting? What's going to excite me? What's going to help? And I think it's definitely one of my key points is to hopefully go into some schools when we're allowed, and just give some careers advice, and just go like, you know what, hairdressing is not a bad thing to think about.
Yeah.
You know?
It's the alternative, isn't it? Because we keep saying about the you know, the careers teacher, or and all these people saying how terrible it is. Well, we can't really moan about that if we don't give it the other side of the coin, and we need the people to go in and go, yeah, that okay, but, you know, what's she doing? You know, and all these people, you know, working in the role that they do. Sam McKnight, you know, like.
Like an iconic legend, you know. You look at all those guys like Sam McKnight and, you know, Eugene, for example, Guido, all of those, the guys who have been doing the craft of our industry at a fashion level, and Sam's done it across both. You know, he's been there as the hairdresser of the time, and then transferred that and gone into doing session, and now he's, you know, launching his products. And you have to kind of, it's a big respect, because it takes energy to jump between all those things and find, I suppose, that energy and passion to keep going and take it somewhere else, or, you know.
I think that's the key as well, because as Sam Army's saying, he's getting on a bit now. I can say that because I am. And he was on the pod recently, and such a lovely man. But it's as you get older, it's harder to keep that energy going, you know. And you're not going to do it without passion.
No, and I think that shows exactly what you're doing with Haircuts for Homeless right now. I think it's a new thing, and from what I can see, it's been the biggest success going in the industry at the moment, because you're giving back. It's
been great. You know, we've had our setbacks, and, you know, as everyone else did, COVID. I mean, you know, from your own salon, like, I mean, it's poignant. I don't know when this is going out, but after the day of filming, yesterday was a year, wasn't it, since we got locked down? And it's like, you can't believe it almost seems, has that really been a year? And also, is that only a year? You know?
Yeah. There's this weird balance of how time has disappeared, but where has it gone, and what have we achieved, and things like that constantly play in your mind.
But like with your family salon, from all of a sudden, it was quite quick, wasn't it? Then bang, it was closed, and we've not been open that much really in the last year. When you look back on it, how has it affected?
9 months, I think, something like that. We've been closed 9 months. That's it,
and it's about 3 months of the year we've actually been open. Yeah.
And the costs on, it's very interesting, because I've got a few different sides to my business of what I do, and one of them is the salon, because that's my heart and that's what I grew up around, and I enjoy it. You know, people say to me, why do you do that salon? Because, you know, you don't really need to, because your session work's so good and you're so busy doing it. And it's because that's where our craft comes from. You know, there's nothing that beats actually sitting in a chair, or not me personally, but a client sitting, or a person sitting in your chair, and you actually cutting their hair, and you don't even necessarily have to have a huge conversation with the person, but you get passion from what you do because you've been creative. The person that's receiving the haircut feels good and gives them a power, or gives them, you know, self-belief, or changes the way they look, which is what we do. And I think that's what it all comes back to. That's why I still do it. And I also enjoy the challenges of the day-to-day challenges that the business, you know, brings, if that makes sense. You know, like a client could cause an absolute nightmare in the salon because they might not have liked what they've had as the treatment, or, you know, you get COVID and it blows up the whole business. You know, but I also meet and have starting to work with some really interesting people who are changing the sort of way that the industry is working, like luckily yourself, and then also working with Green Salon Collective has really opened my eyes to the amount that salons, waste that they produce, and the importance of what we need to do to change that. And, you know, the environment's what we live in, and I really enjoy, I'm quite a massive snowboarder, and I really enjoy going to the mountains and enjoying that. And not being able to go this year has been a bit frustrating, I suppose. You know, and I think that's what's been great, is meeting new people about what we do with the industry, changing the way that, you know, I live my life in terms of, you know, actually getting rid of the, you know, diesel car that I had, getting an electric one, trying to be more sustainable in the way that we live, and the salon as well. And that inspires the girls and the team that I work with at the salon, the assistants that come and help me on the shoots, the product brands that I might affiliate myself with and work with. It's all these pieces of the puzzle that I'm constantly trying to put together and make it work correctly, I suppose.
I think it's amazing you said about Green Salon Collective. I thought, because I had Fry on from Green Salon Collective.
Yeah.
And that they're now one of our sponsors, you know, and they, you know, they kindly donate to us through the profits and stuff. And but I love what they do. I love, you know, and it was that no-brainer, wasn't it? It was that, why have we been doing this for years? And he's, you know, and all that. The amount of 30 years I had a salon, the amount of hair I must have swept, I probably could have filled a.
And the amount of foil that is just nuts. It's like, you know, a busy salon that's, you know, got chairs that are full every day. The amount of metal and waste and crap and bleach, and I pulled out this bag of, you know, excess colour the other day because we're now putting it all in a bag so that we recycle it. It was massive. Yeah, and you just think, you know, it's so good that Fry and Green Salon Collective, you know, because it's that team there, are changing the way that salons are run, because it's making the world better and more sustainable. And, you know, that's so good for what is around us. And I think that's what is important. And even with COVID and the bad times that we've all had to go through mentally, people, you know, unfortunately, you know, dying from it. But it makes you reevaluate and think about the way that we do stuff. So I think that's been a massive, the one good thing I suppose I could take out of this, you know, pandemic, is the fact that you've had the time to actually sit back, reevaluate and think what's important in life.
Yeah, and maybe also that the industry will have to, there will be changes that have to be made, you know, because it's not all for the bad, because sometimes change comes out of bad that ends up being a positive thing. And maybe, you know, like, I think clients' thought processes are going to change, you know, because they've had so long of, like, it takes 3 months to break or to form a habit, but also it takes 3 months to break one, roughly. And they've had 3 months of not getting their hair done. So we're going to have to sort of counteract that a little bit, or maybe their needs are changing. It's going to be it's sort of interesting, isn't it?
Very interesting times across everything, from the way we do things, the haircuts we're going to have. Maybe everyone's going to come back and go mental and, you know, completely change the way they look. Yeah. Time will only tell, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I was speaking to Sally Brooks, was on a few weeks ago, and she I think she was wise, because she was saying about the fact that we are going to have a massive boom, you know, like it's like anything. But she was anticipating then a bit of a dip. Yeah. And that's the point where we then maybe have to evaluate. I think that's very true, that you maybe, you know, people maybe have to relook at our different, you know, trends and habits of clients, you know, and their wants and needs. Yeah, it's gonna be, and as anything, the survivors will be the people who can adapt, I think.
Oh, constantly. I think that's, you know, I look at this. There was this little spin studio that I go to a lot that was around the corner, and it really fascinating, because he built this amazing little business, and overnight, because of COVID, you know, he'd just taken on a new shop that he was developing and building the whole thing. And over the night, he turned his regular spin studio into an online business and made it a huge success. And I think it's that adapting, like you said, is what makes people and a business.
Yeah, of course. And it's been, I think it's people in the other side of the hairdressing industry that you're in have been fortunate in a way. It's not been as much, but you've been able to do some work, because they've been able to do some fashion shoots. There's some of that stuff still going on, isn't it?
I tell you what, the one of the biggest things I think, you know, is being brought up as well at the moment is mental health. And the fact that I've been very lucky that I've been able to keep going and doing my fashion shoots has been very important for not only creativity, but just getting out the house. You know, I think I've been very lucky that I've been able to go and do shoots. We've been allowed to do that. Sometimes I think, how the hell is this actually possible? Because I'm in a studio with 50 other people. Yeah. You know, we're all got COVID regulations, and we're, you know, putting more sticks up our nose, getting our COVID tests than you can imagine. Yeah. but I've been so lucky that I've been able to do that. And travel has been restricted definitely in the last few months. And it's been a tough one because I've not been able to, 80% of the business of the session stuff I do is getting on a plane, going somewhere, doing a job for a few days, bouncing back off the plane, doing a job in London, and then going somewhere else again. Yeah. And I've definitely missed the traveling for sure, because it takes you to cool places.
Yeah, cool places, but there's always the people I've spoke to in that world. There's always that little bit of it's never as glamorous as everyone else.
Oh God, you're spot on, mate. You're spot on.
Like 2 o'clock in the morning.
You get delayed, and the taxi doesn't turn up. Then you've lost your baggage with all the kit in. Then you've got to do a job with a tail comb and a water spray. It has its stressful moments, but it's a pretty amazing industry, the fashion world and the fashion industry, and working for the biggest and most powerful fashion brands in the world is an insight and very opening.
And as well, there's been an element. There's always an element. I love the elements of this world, but there's been an element that I've been a bit resentful for the fact that some fashion shoots have gone on and things. But what do we need more than something in these times where entertain like some of our children in the entertainment industry and things like that? Like we need something. Like it's any positive you can get coming out of anything.
Yeah,
it's really valuable.
Yeah, for sure. I posted a couple of videos from Ibiza in the 90s, just some like people just looking like they're having an absolute epic time, and I thought it's got to go up today.
Yeah, definitely.
One day we'll be back in a big club with some big speakers and bass.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's surreal when we take a lot for granted when you stop and think about it. So much for granted.
Massively. I suppose, and that's everywhere, as I said, it's about reevaluation and finding a new way in life, I think, which has been a good thing for everybody.
I mean, I'm a boring old man now, and I enjoy being a boring old man now. But I remember in the 80s, very early 80s, in a rave in a fielding, I think it was Energy at Guildford or something. There was 40,000 people in a field, and you think,
yeah,
you just
is that was it in that big bowl? It was like that big bowl, and it's in by Winchester, and he just is it that, and then just huge speakers and just the people and noise, and you're like, yes.
I remember we parked up. We thought, we'll leave our car here because we must be near it because it was so loud. And I think it took 45 minutes to actually walk to where it was. The phone call on the M25, right? You've got to go to Guildford.
Very good.
Those were the days. My kids now, they think, I'm only happy now if I get a free for two at Tesco or something.
Bit of a bargain.
Yeah.
Is your one son still in hairdressing?
Yeah. He works at Taylor.
Oh, great.
Yeah, he's obviously on furlough.
In East or in Notting Hill?
He's in Liberties.
Oh, he's in Liberties, is he?
Yeah, he's in East, and then they had a availability, and he went off to. He's been in Liberties for the last few months.
Okay.
And as you said, from a local Essex.
How old is he?
He's 24.
Right.
So a local Essex salon, and then like being in Liberties and having a little walk round of a lunchtime and going out for a drink after. You can see the allure, can't you?
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, because I was talking to a couple of my mates. We went out on a cycle ride the other day, and those guys are guys that I met at Nicky Clark's. And when we were there were when I started, I think there was 17 or 18 assistants in the salon. That's how big it was. It was, and that's assistants. That's huge. And we all sort of trained, and we went out together all the time. Like most nights of the week, we'd go out. And nowadays, I'm hearing that most assistants in salons are not interested in going out, really. They're interested in just going to the gym.
I know.
And looking great and feeling great. And I'm like, you're missing out on all those like late nights and feeling horrendous, and then having to still get up to work at 8:30 and be there and smile and not smell.
my son, he's got like the long hair, and he's spent like every day in the gym.
There you go.
In the garden, working out and that.
Yeah.
And I think I'd have spent 3 months watching the telly. It's
It's amazing.
Right. But they are quite disciplined, aren't they?
Very. And I think that's not a bad thing either, health and looking good and feeling good. And I mean, whether it's all for show on the old Insta world, who knows, right?
Maybe a bit of both, maybe a bit of both. So
we'll have to get him to come and give us a hand, because I've got a couple of the guys from Taylor that come and give me a hand on shoots and shows. So maybe you can come and give us a hand on something.
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell him.
Yeah.
He don't watch this.
It's like, Dad, boring.
Yeah. I don't think any of my kids watch this. I did recently. A few weeks ago, I had a wonderful girl on there called Jess Megan, who's a young, like, body positive activist, educator, brilliant young woman.
Yeah.
And, I felt a bit unauthorised to sort of talk to her entirely, so I've got my daughter Esme to come on with me, who's just left you.
Great.
And she co-hosted with me, and it was really good. So I think that's good to watch, because Esme was on it. They've all watched it. But
great.
Now I'm watching it. So you went from that. So at some point, I think you said a few years ago, you become like an ambassador for Babyliss.
For Babyliss, yeah.
Layman, what does it involve being, like ambassador for a brand?
That's a great question. So, when as I go through your career, you meet different brands and you meet different people, and an ambassador role is, in my eyes, is someone who will represent a brand, and my job is to launch any new products that they might have. And that's not me personally launching it, because it's not my invention or tool or hairdryer or whatever it is, but it's to help support and help show the expertise of a hairdresser that uses that tool to be able to demonstrate to the rest of the fashion world, the beauty world, or salons, of what they do and why they like that tool. So you're basically explaining, the benefits of using, for example, the Italia Brava hairdryer by Babyliss Pro, which is an incredible, powerful dryer, and there's a reason why that hairdryer is in my kit all the time, because it basically does the job.
Yeah,
and it's it becomes a bit of a partnership, I suppose. And I affiliate myself with them, and they work with me, and we have a very good, it's been a long relationship now. It's been 4 years.
Yeah.
And you also help create their advertising pictures, and have a sort of a say about what you think would be good to improve a product, or a curling tong, or the battery powered future of hair care that's now evolving. And I think that's a very cool thing to be able to get to in the stage in your life where you're doing something like that. So I've had a very
as well, when like with the tools you use, the best person, especially someone like yourself, is like knowing that certain things are heavy, to work with, and if they improve the weight or the balance.
Exactly. What could you add to give this the next thing? And I suppose what's exciting is, we are in a world of battery power right now, and charging, and how you can make that product, or what we can do to make that the best thing in the world. And I suppose that's every brand's dream, is to create a hairdryer that's going to be without a lead and plugged into the wall.
The times I've wrapped myself around it, one of the wonderful blessed trainees has wrapped it round like that, and you can't use it. It's all.
There's this amazing talking about battery power, and have you ever seen the haircuts in the park before?
No.
So you should have a look at this, right? Because there's a very in New York. There was a session stylist, an amazing session stylist, and he basically did. He went to he lives in New York. It's an amazing hairdresser. He's called Christiane. And he basically did, you should have a look at the pictures because they're really cool. And he did it years ago and then he redid it again. And he basically went to New York, to Manhattan, sat in the park, and he just cut loads of people's heads. So anyone could come and sit there and have a haircut. Yeah. And Christiane's an incredible session hairdresser. Has been around a long time again, sort of in the era of sort of Sam McKnight and Eugene and those boys. Yeah. He's up there. And he did all these haircuts, and, you know, battery power is so cool now because you'll be able to take a pair of clippers and just do that in the park without having to plug in.
Yeah,
you should look at that because in terms of Christiane and what he did and the pictures they took, there's this really cool fashion photographer that I work with actually quite a bit. She's called Cass, and she she took all these pictures, and they're so great because they just show him and his hands, and he's got this sort of like big face and glasses, and he's a really cool looking guy, and just made people feel good. And I think that's what a haircut does.
Yeah, undoubtedly. There's another salon, another session stylist, Sasha Brewer.
Yeah,
and he started the Kind Cut in LA, and he contacted me quite early on. I think I'd only been doing it a couple of years, and he was going to be doing that, and he's seen what we were doing. Yeah, and we had a few conversations, and he set up this thing out there. And then it did come to London at one point, and he come and joined us at the Whitechapel Mission. And so we had this.
Oh, wow.
We both. It was really funny because he gave me I'm a bit bigger than him, and I gave him my head. He gave me a Kind Cut T-shirt which I put on, and I didn't have a spare one, so I took mine off, and I was really sweaty. Because it's really like Whitechapel Mission, and I've been cutting it. I went out, and I could see him sort of hold it like that. And then I could see what he was. I went, "Oh, you ain't got to put it on now. I just thought you." I am not putting that near me. You don't smell great when you're doing that some of the time. But outside thing, they have to do it outside because the challenge they had, they couldn't get legislation in America is quite difficult with licensing and all that. And whereas we only go in centres, they couldn't go in centres, so they had to have these outdoor events. And so it was probably very similar to Christiane.
So you only do it in centres. Is that for everything from health and safety and insurance, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, it was all... The first guy I saw doing it was Mark Bustos in America. And so that was inspired. I thought, I'm going to try that. I was already going into the local Sally Army because next month I'm 15 years sober, so I was doing this work with recovery with people. Yeah, and then it's sort of an event. You know, I saw that on Facebook, these makeovers, and then on the following Monday, I thought I'll go in an hour early and see if any of the guys want their hair cut. And it just went from there. You know, and so that's where that sort of came from on that. But it's pretty quickly I realised that if we'd done it in places like that, we could replicate it. Whereas if I'd just done it on my own, I could have gone off and done it everywhere. But if I wanted it sort of replicable, we had to have somewhere safe, particularly for volunteers. Because if I couldn't send young girls, I'm not being sexist, but I couldn't send young girls off and, you know, in the street somewhere just in case. Oh. So this was a way of doing it, safe and replicable. So it's worked out all right. We've got 67 across UK. We've got 600 volunteers. Wow. We've done over 40,000 haircuts. Amazing. So that's since 2014. But it was just. It was only going to be me on a Monday. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, but I suppose Giving something back, and then you think, oh my, wow, look.
Yeah, you be careful because you've been mentioning this.
No, I know. And I'm going to be going all around the schools in the UK doing sort of, work stuff for kids to get them, inspire them into the industry. But, it's like me saying that I wanted to come and give you guys a hand, because I think it's great. I think, you need to do these things for your own mind, and so you can help others who aren't in such good positions, basically, I think.
Yeah, you'll love it, Sid. You'll really love it. And because everyone does, There's been a couple along the line. It's been quite a few years now. There's been a few here and there that have messaged me after and said, "Look, I enjoyed it, but it's
not for me.
For me, But it's such a minority, because most people, I get this sort of message a few days later, and I say like, "Oh, you've not been able to stop thinking about it, have you?" Because it's people.
That's there.
It especially. I remember Maxine from Beauty Papers. She phoned me a few days after she came to the mission.
Yeah.
She said, she said, "You've really messed me up."
What did I do?
She said, because I'm in this world of high fashion, and I can't. It's made everything seem a bit pointless. Which she didn't mean it. But I got what she meant. It's difficult, to then go away and everything be normal. But it's important for things to be normal, but just having an awareness of that other side of life, and know that you can only help in a small way, but if everyone helps in a small way, it becomes a big thing.
I suppose people say to me, you go from the session world where you're doing a job for, I don't know, whatever, a brand in LA, and then you fly and you do a Vogue for British Vogue, and then you do an Italian Vogue job, and then you go and work in the salon in Kew Gardens. Yeah. And kind of like, well, why do you do that? And I think it's because it keeps you grounded.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to do those things and offer and give it back and be grounded and not be affected by some of the opportunities that we get put in or aspire to be put in. There's been a big shine over the last few years about session stylists and this and that, and it's great, but it's also great being a hairdresser in a salon or being a hairdresser like you and giving something back after all the years that you've had that and done that.
I think that's crucial. I think that'd be the message that you will take out to the schools and the young people. And I think I'm really behind you on that. I think for the future of our industry, we've got to get young people to fall back in love with it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough couple of years. I mean, I like to be positive, but let's be realistic. It's going to be a tough couple of years for our industry. And it needs as much young passion and, love coming into the industry as we can get, I think.
Yeah, most of the when I think about or talk to a lot of the guys that are in the industry and that have been successful, they've seen or grown up around a hairdressing industry. Do you know what I mean? Like their parents were hairdressers, or their mum might have been, or their dad is, and they end up going into it because they've seen it and they've grown up around it and they understand it. Whereas you don't hear, definitely in the schools, people going, go into hairdressing or go into beauty and be a makeup artist, or I think there's lots of programs that now on television that really aspire young kids to go into makeup, let's say, but less so in hairdressing because it's not as reactive in front of the camera.
No.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not as quick as putting on a bit of mascara or a lipstick because it shows up. Yeah. It takes you could be reactive if you went like that, couldn't you? But you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's not that instant. Well, everything's instant now, isn't it? Instant gratification, instant recognition.
Yeah, but it takes
and hair takes a bit longer and a bit more work, I think.
Takes graft and years, and I'm constantly learning and finding new things and thinking, God, that's good, or that person's done that really well. How did they do that? Where's the reference? Where's that come from?
Yeah.
There's always a reference for something, because that's what we like to do, is we like to vision and look back at a certain era of time when hair was really cool at that time, or take an element of it from the 40s but mix it with the 90s, or I think that's a craft, to be able to see vision as well, and not everyone has that. It's hard to teach.
I think vision. I've been hairdressing 44 years. I think about 44 years I've been hairdressing.
Yeah,
and I still love it, and even now, and as you say, learning is so. I'm always learning. It wasn't that long ago I went on a Sophia Hilton colouring course. I was so far. Really? I went in there and done it. That's when I still had the salon, and I thought, no, I want to go. Yeah. I said, I want to go, and I know. I look like the granddad of the crew.
But that shows you how you are as a person, and you are able to adapt and change and do new things. And I think that's the best thing about us, the industry, hairdressing, is you never, ever stop learning. I was lucky enough to go and learn from Nicky Clark's. I then went to Hirschison's and learnt off Daniel Hirschison and Luke Hirschison. I did a House Sassoon course as well at one time during that period. I then went and worked with Guido, one of the biggest session stylists in the world. I travelled the world with him for 3 years, met everyone in the fashion industry, and then I went and started working back in the salon with my dad and learnt from my dad. It's getting bits from everybody, and I'm still learning now. I learn off the guys that come and help me on my shows, the assistants that come and team up with me, and some of those guys are incredible hairdressers.
Yeah.
And
you learn from the young ones sometimes.
Learn from them. They, some of them have given me, bits from the theatre world, in dressing hair and doing things quickly from the theatre world, which I've then put into the world of fashion, and I just love learning. That's why I love this industry. It's brilliant.
So in closing, what do you see for the rest of the year for you?
For the rest of the year, I hope, with this rollout of these vaccinations, I hope that travel is going to become much easier again, because A, I love going on holiday like we all do. B, I love traveling the world. I've seen some of the most incredible places through work and through being able to travel on those jobs. So that's a big thing for me, is being able to do that again. Getting the family business back up on its feet and getting rid of the debt that it's incurred through no fault of our own.
Of course.
That's another big goal. Getting back into work with everybody in groups, hanging out with people.
Yeah.
And then I think the big thing is, giving something back, giving some of my time to be able to push back and show people the world of hairdressing and what we live in and what you can do as a young kid, and inspire them, I think, is a big thing. I've changed the whole way that the salon works in terms of the working with Green Salon Collective. Fry's just asked me to come on and be one of their Green Libertines, which I think is really cool. Yeah. Again, inspiring and aspiring others. Yeah. And through all that, I suppose I've reevaluated the way that even our the energy at home. We're now with Bulb, and that's an energy company that is sustainable. So that's great. And then I've done the same with the salon. So I suppose it's just getting those goals and then continuing on the journey of the session world and being creative, I suppose, is another one. So there's a lot, but I always need lots.
Well, I don't know. You say like one of the goals is to inspire the young people.
Yeah.
But you've inspired this old git this afternoon.
Yeah. Stuart, thank you, mate. Very kind.
And it's great. The thing is, it's infectious, isn't it? You know, like I love being around. You know, preferably physically, but like just being around positive. It just soak it up, don't you? You know,
yeah, for sure.
Train you and people who elevate you. And, you know, and I know that going forward that we'll definitely meet up. We'll have a coffee and we'll do some work. And anything, I know you'll help Haircuts for Homeless. I know that. And anything I can do to help what you want.
That's very kind.
Just let me know because, you know, I think it's very valuable and very important.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm working a bit with the British Beauty Council, and Millie and those guys are sort of behind this inspiring the new generation. I've set up already the first thing of I'm going to go into my first secondary school that I went to, which is a local one, and we're going to sort of test it out there first, see how it goes, and see what happens. And I think that's what's quite cool about it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well. Thanks, you so much for today. I really appreciate it, and you know, let's keep in touch. I'll put all the links to everything on the bottom of the podcast, and you know, hopefully we'll see you very soon.
Be good to give you a big handshake and a hug, Stuart, as well, mate. Well done.
And a cuddle. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Cheers.
Thank you, mate.
It's just over 5 years ago, I did something that changed my life. What it did, more than I could have ever realised, it helped me. I have met some absolutely amazing people, some of the people that work in some of these places. Many of them are volunteers, but some of them, it is their job. This is more than a job, this is a calling.